And this session is about the Trade Union Act and the future for national strikes. We have Jo McNeill, who is UCU National Executive Member from Liverpool University. She's also a candidate in the General Secretary election coming up in the near future. I'm seeking nominations for it at the moment. And we also have Sandy Nichol, who's from Unison, SOAS, and he'll be speaking about actions that he's been involved in around workers and national strike. Hello Chris, would you just like to take a seat? Okay, so the format will be, Jo, you can have, let's see, 20 minutes?
Are you kidding me?
Or
20 minutes, yeah,
15 minutes or so, and then...
I was asked to prepare 5 minutes, so we'll see how we go. I'll try and talk slow.
And then people obviously think of things you want to discuss, because what would be good is if we can come up with some, working suggestions and things to raise at the plenary, so we've got something to feed back afterwards. Okay?
All right, thanks, Margot. I think it should be quite an interactive session anyway, because I think what we have to do around building national strikes around this trade union bill is work together. So I think us having that kind of debate today is a good idea. I remember the day that the TU bill got its royal assent, and I read about it in the papers. I'd just before that read something about it being the 90th anniversary of the 1926 general strike, and I thought to myself, well, I don't think that that's a coincidence. I think that's a very clear message to us that we didn't actually pull it together enough to respond as strongly as I think we should have done when this TU bill was just an act. I think we should, the TUC, I'll give them that we went into a collective consultation, and the bill that we're working within today is not the original bill that was posed. It's a bit of a shadow of that basically, isn't it? But it's a testament to that level of collective consultation, but it just wasn't enough. I think we should have actually pulled it together to organise some kinds of national action in response to the proposal. Sorry, I'm just gonna go through my pointers that I don't miss anything. Okay, I think this is the biggest attack that we've seen on our movement since Thatcher, and instead of worrying about what we should have done at the time, I suppose we should be saying things like, don't more organise. Let's listen to people like Joe Hill. So on a practical level, we've got to look at what we've got to do in relation to sort of the detail of this bill. So we've got to look at we've got to now achieve a 50% ballot turnout in higher education. I know there'll be people from different unions here, but for us in HE and for the fire services, the emergency services, the teaching unions, we've all got to get 50% turnout in our ballot. And I don't know what it's like in other unions, but for us the average is about a 35% turnout on a national ballot, and that's difficult enough to achieve in itself. So for a 50% ballot, I'm not saying it's unachievable, it absolutely is. At a local level, we've done it in the past. In our branch up in Liverpool, we were facing a massive attack a few years ago. There was a proposal of 3,000 redundancies on a Friday with a reinstatement onto wage terms and conditions on the Monday, and we went into an all-out action about that. We decided we wanted to really turn on the employer and show them that we could collectively mobilise and organise our branch in response to that threat. So we really raised the profile. We went out, we mobilised our members, and we took them to a ballot. We made sure that the academic members were coming out with us, as well as the academic relators, although they were not directly affected. And we ended up, getting the vote out, which took door knocking, going out every single day, every lunchtime, trying to get people to send them paper ballots in. It took a huge amount of hard work, but we managed to get the 50%. And that's kind of what we're going to have to do in future moving forward. It's not that we won't do it. As activists in this room, we are going to work hard, we are going to do that. We will go out and get the vote out, and we will give our time. But they kind of know that. So as well as the 50% turnout, as well as the 50% turnout, they're also trying to attack our facilities time. So if we're asking our reps to come out and work harder and do more, and then they're taking our facilities time away from us, we can see that that's a multifaceted attack. We've also seen in recent times a real trend that is a very worrying trend towards trade union victimisation. So this is happening across the country and it's happening across a number of different unions. And in our union, you know, we've seen it locally in London. We've got a case ourselves right now at the moment at the University of Liverpool that we're just dealing with. We've seen it in Salford, Bolton. You know, it's a very worrying and recurring theme. And what we're asking our members to do, unlike this trade union bill, we're asking our members to step up, to do more for less time, and to make themselves identifiable. And they've got to do things like identify themselves as picket supervisors. So the consultation over the trade union bill has allowed us to move away from every single picketer having to disclose our personal data and information to the police or the employers. But we've still got to have one person who stands up and is the picket supervisor and still got to give that level of information. In a time when our unions are not stepping up as effectively as we would like them sometimes to support our victimised trade union reps, we're asking a lot of our people. So we've got to show our support. Our national union should be acting. You know, we should be coming all out and showing our full strength whenever any one of our activists or our reps is attacked. So I think we've got to bear in mind that all of this is happening for a reason. Our employers know what's happening. Our employers are ready to implement this bill, and that's why we're starting to see these increased attacks, which we haven't seen for a while. Or, you know, in some areas anyway. Okay. We asked about, as part of the TUC consultations, the unions asked about incorporating e-ballots. Now the e-ballots are being effectively kicked out into the long grass. That's not something that's happening in the short term. In the short term, we've still got to go through these paper ballots, and as I say, that goes back to that level of difficulty. We've now got increased notice periods. I mean, as you know, at the moment, it's a week to give notice for a strike. And our aim in any strike is to cause maximum disruption. So if in a week our management can organise cover and can bring in agency workers and can do what they can to minimise our disruption, 2 weeks is going to give them plenty of time. So there's ways around that as well. You know, there's ways that we can look at approaching these agency workers, these employers. I know it's difficult and it's not something that, you know, is as straightforward as we'd like, but there was a session, or there may be a session running concurrently with this one, about organising the unorganised. And we can see that happening across, you know, there's the Uber drivers, there's different people are starting to be annoyed at what's going on, so people may well connect with us at this point. That's up to us as trade unions to go out to those people, think and preempt who will our employers go to get cover for our members when we're going through notice periods, and we liaise with them now and get those connections set up so that they work with us and not against us, and that they don't break our strikes. The other issue that we've got is that the certification officer has been given far more teeth in this new bill. So anyone can go to the certification officer and make a complaint. It doesn't have to be one of our own union members. It can be absolutely anybody. There are increased opportunities for the certification officer to give us hefty fines, and those fines will be coming from money that our members will need to pay. Tribunal costs, which again is something we are always fighting against. They should be using it for helping them go through legal battles, and they should be using them for any kinds of resource that our members need. Strike funds, anything. They shouldn't be going to pay certification officers, but anyone can see, we can predict now that if anyone can make a complaint, people will make complaints, and they will draw on our financial resources in whatever way they can. So we've got to find ways to protect our backs basically from these certification officers. I mean, I'll conclude because I'd rather we move on. We can open it up to people to speak. But I think our best approach to working within this Trade Union Act, and I don't know about other people. I mean, and I don't know what it's like for the people who are writing this bill, in government, and what it's like when you're at school and eating, because it's not something that I've got any knowledge of. But these people are told that a bill can come into play, and we are all going to just comply with it and do as we're told. I think we're, you know, this is the biggest attack our movement has seen, as I said earlier, since Thatcher. We've got to find a way to respond to it. If we get knocked, this movement has got to stand up and fight back. And I think, you know, we've got to work together, every single union. If one person is victimised after stepping up to be a picket supervisor, because they will be, we will see that happening. We've got to be prepared for that. And it's not just, you know, your own union should back it. It should be every single trade union activist in this country should come together and respond when we see those attacks happening. So we've got to start fighting back. We are hard workers. We will go out. We will mobilise. The people who are here today giving necessities up, you know, we will go out and get votes out, to get balloting out. We will show them that in spite of the bill that we can take this forward. But it is going to come down to that level of activism and building and making sure that we protect each other going through this. And the other thing we can do is get behind Corbyn and get him elected, because he's the only person who's talking about repealing this bill, and that's the only answer. And when he does repeal the bill, which I don't very often trust politicians, but I will say I think he's genuine, and I hope he does keep to his words. And if he does keep to his words and we repeal that bill, then we should have a union movement then that will not allow this kind of thing to come and rise again, and we should be ready to fight against it, and we should be mobilising towards general strikes when anything like this is even as much as mentioned in the future.
Thanks very much. Thanks, Jo. I'm going to take Sandy and then open it up for discussion. People might want to think of things that they want to raise specific to their own workplaces, and also general observations as well. I'd like to get as many people in as possible, so if you're thinking about responses to what Jo said, that would be, or questions or anything, start thinking about them now. Well,
okay. This time last year I was celebrating the fact that I'd just been reinstated to my job as working in IT in Scottish University of London. Celebrating the fact that I was back as the branch secretary of the local branch, and celebrating the fact that we just defeated an attempt to victimise one of the most active unison branches in higher education. And the reason they won, and why it's significant to this meeting, is a very straightforward reason, and that's because we won because instead of waiting to go through the whole process of balloting and so on, which has seen so many union activists go down the road, because actually between the initial act and then 3 months later when you're actually finally able to take action, you know, actually a lot can change and a lot can happen. Instead of waiting for that, the very following morning after I was effectively dismissed for gross misconduct, which turned out not to be gross misconduct miraculously, actually the entire branch, my unison branch, walked out. We had a mass meeting in the morning, we voted and we walked out and we shut the university down. We did it through massive solidarity from our UCU colleagues. We did it because we've got a relationship with the student body inside our university that actually delivered, you know, huge numbers of people on the protests we held outside the building. And because we shut the university down for 2 straight days, our management was on their knees by it, at the end of it, and they actually are the ones that had to come and say, actually we didn't really mean it when we said we sacked you. That's how you defeat anti-union legislation. What's the problem? Very simple one, right? That instead of that being the sort of template for our union leaders, actually what they saw in the face of the Tory attack, and it's a Tory attack that's happened for very obvious reasons, isn't it? We're in the, what is it, the 8th year now of a crisis and a recession, which has essentially meant that the bosses for the last 8 years have been trying to transfer the cost of that recession onto ordinary working class people. The results are obvious. You know, what is it, the figure that was quoted this morning, 10.4% drop in workers' pay in those 8 years. Actually, we're the second worst country in Europe. Only Greece, and given the crisis they've been through, that tells you something. Only Greece has actually seen significant such a significant fall in wages. We've seen it for the privatisations. We've seen a massive wave of attacks as they try and effectively impose that cost onto us. And of course, what the trade union bill is about is the fact that they can see that over time this has been building up a degree of bitterness, and they were frightened that the trade union bureaucracy, that the people they have always used to try and hold that resistance in check, may not have been able to hold it for much longer. So they've now put in place yet another draft of legislation, and people have discussed what it actually contains. The fundamental aspect of it is it's to make the idea of taking strike action more difficult and you know, well nigh impossible in some situations. The 50% ballot threshold, of course we shouldn't say it's an impossible threshold to get over, but actually I did go through every single ballot in higher education in my sector, going back to the year 2000. There were 8 ballots that led to industrial action. Not one of those came close to the threshold. In Unison, actually, the average is less than the 35% that is in UC. It's near to 25% is the kind of ballot returns we get. We'd have to double the turnout to be able to even have a chance of having a successful strike. And it's deliberately there, not because they don't believe it's possible for us to get there. It's deliberately there because they're going to rely on exactly what they relied on the last wave of anti-union legislations, which is the trade union leaderships to police the bill for them. What they're actually hoping, and I think they'll get, is that it'll be our union leaders that will come to us and say, we're not going to get the 50%, and therefore we're not going to ballot. Or we're not going to get 50%, therefore we have to look at alternative ways of fighting back, we have to look at different ways, different strategies, and actually try and put industrial action on the back burner as something almost unachievable. Now we know it's possible. You know, you talked about the fantastic ballot result you got in Liverpool University. I can talk about one that we got amongst our cleaners at SOAS, where they had 100% turnout in their ballot and they had a 98% yes vote for strike action. It's possible when the circumstances are there and when organisation is there to actually be able to deliver. But they reckon on something very fundamental, which is we all know across our different sectors that there are very, very strong branches in some areas and very weak branches in some non-existent branches. When it comes to the key question that this meeting's talking about, and I think this is what we should open up for discussion, is what do we do in future about national industrial action? And the reason I'm going to focus on it is because actually I do think it's still going to be possible when the issues arise and we have to push for it, to have local action and push the bureaucracy to give us balance when we can show that we can deliver a high enough turnout. And it's possible through our own efforts in our own branches where we've got some sort of influence to be able to deliver it. I mean, John Burgess is in the back of the room here. I know John in Barnet can deliver strike action against privatisation and attacks on his union members because he's shown it time and time again. And I know if he was forced to do it, he would actually meet the ballot thresholds. But when it comes to national action, I think we're in serious trouble. And we're in serious trouble because it's going to be very, very difficult for activists to be able to influence the overall outcome of that because we don't have the kind of networks and the kind of degree of organisation that will actually deliver. And I think that presents us with a problem. See, we had a ballot over pay this year in Unison Higher Education. We got a 55% yes vote and a 25% turnout. Now in the past that was the union would have called the action. This time round they binned the ballot, right? Almost like they already predicted, you know, that, well, and it was exactly the same argument, you know. Well, that means that 75% of the people that didn't vote, we don't know what they think, so we'll just assume that they were in favour of voting or voting against. Now, they bought the argument of the Tories in terms of the whole idea about ballot thresholds, and they pushed that through. And it basically is, you know, effective way completely destroyed any real fight this year over pay. But next year, the argument's going to be how on earth are we ever going to get a 50% yes vote? And therefore my argument is, my question, and I think what the discussion should focus on, is how do we confront that? Because we're all involved in national bargaining. You know, we heard this morning from John Hendy, right, that actually sectoral collective bargaining is one of the ways that we have been able to actually protect some of the weaker sections of our movement. You heard from the guy from the French trade unions about the importance of nationally agreed, you know, minimums in terms of the protection it affords to French workers. That's always been the argument on the left for why we backed national bargaining. But actually, even if we believe that Jeremy will actually get into office and will actually repeal this legislation, we could be talking about 2020 before that happens. Actually, I think our movement will be massively damaged if we wait till then in order to be able to deliver any kind of real fight back against austerity. This government feels it has to keep going on the offensive and will carry on going on the offensive, and it's the arguments that will effectively be, you know, what they'll be trying to marginalise and defeat. And actually, I think there's a real problem, and that is that if our unions aren't able then to show leadership, then actually the anger and the bitterness amongst a lot of our members can go elsewhere. And that again is the lesson that we were talking about this morning about how we deliver. And if we have to come up with a solution to this, and I think in part, it's obvious, isn't it? We need to keep the pressure on the trade union leaders to fight. We need to actually keep the pressure on. We need to build a campaign to say that we actually will back illegal industrial action when it takes place, and so on and so forth. So we won't actually allow them to hold us to these ballot norms. But that will be a very difficult argument to win, and it will be a very difficult argument to translate into actual action on the ground. And if we have to look, I think, at different scenarios and different situations, can we stick to national bargaining if it's not delivering? If the argument for national bargaining is it protects the weakest by pulling them up to the level of the highest, if it goes into reverse, if national bargaining means that actually, as somebody once described it, becomes national begging, because we've got no prospect of being able to deliver strike action on the ground, right, then is national bargaining the only answer? And actually, what else do we actually look to as an alternative in this way of mobilising our membership and fighting back against the attacks that they're facing? There are a number of ways that can be done. In London, I mean, the last time we had a catastrophic ballot result in unison in higher education, a lot of London branches just got together and we went out and we fought in London Waiting, and we won a significant victory in London Waiting, and that really buoyed up the branches and pushed us forward, right? But actually that's only available in sort of particular circumstances. But actually there is the question of whether or not we should be looking at, you know, these kinds of fights. There's the other issues that are coming up which we can fight on a more localised level, like the attacks that you were talking about over, you know, over privatisation and so on and so forth. But pay is quite crucial and quite fundamental to our union. So I suppose the question I'm posing is to what level do we continue to defend national bargaining if it ceases to be able to deliver for our members and we cease to be able to have the kind of strike action that would actually, you know, effectively lead to some sort of success for our membership, and to what extent do we need to look for other alternatives and other ways of resisting, which could mean actually, you know, for the time being at least, actually looking at alternatives to national bargaining, looking at local pay and local battles. Now, I don't say that very easily, but I had to go back to my branch in London and say we're not fighting over pay, despite knowing for a fact that we had a 96% yes vote in our consultative ballot and an 80% turnout. Knowing that my management had budgeted and has budgeted for the last 5 years more than we've been able to deliver through national bargaining on pay. And actually, it becomes almost incomprehensible to my members why we're not actually taking on that battle and fighting. And therefore, I don't see how it could be problematic if we were to fight and win and turn around to other colleges, for example, in our sector and say, if we can win it, you can too, and actually trying to lead the fight back from that level if we're not getting the kind of leadership from the top. But I do know there are actually all sorts of arguments against this strategy, and particularly it's not a particularly good strategy. It's not very. There are all sorts of issues given how weak we genuinely are on the ground, and it's if we were stronger, I think we would actually be. We could look forward to it with it could be a more straightforward strategy. But I do think passive national bargaining is the worst of both worlds. It's remote term membership, right? So a lot of people don't see national bargaining in the way that they see what you do on a local level in terms of, so it doesn't build branches, it doesn't build the confidence of your members particularly. If it's not delivering, it's not actually fit for purpose as far as they're concerned. And if I do think we're going to be confronted with this, you know, if we sit on our hands for 4 years in the hope that Corbyn will come over the hill and rescue us, which I still do hope he does, by the way, you know, we will actually, I think, see the erosion of our unions to a point where we will be in a far weaker position in that scenario. So I'll leave it there, because this is about opening up the discussion and the debate. I know that's probably been quite controversial, but I'll leave it out there and see what people think and what people say. So over to you.
Okay.